All right. Give me just a second. I want to make sure the live stream is working. It thinks it is. Okay, we are live streaming. I have confirmed. Apologies for a few minutes of technical difficulties. We switched things up here a little bit. So I think we're ready to get started. We have a number of things to demo this time around. So I'm going to go ahead and hand off to Patrick to get us started. Just a reminder to folks who are demoing to please give a little bit of background about what you're showing before you dive right in so people have context, because we'll be jumping around quite a bit in different areas in this demo. I will post the recording of this in YouTube onto our wiki page in Taiga for reference later on if anyone is interested. If you are having any trouble or have questions that you'd like to raise during the demo, I would recommend actually that you just join #fedora-rel-ing, and we can have those discussions there rather than me setting up a meeting room, because we haven't been recording the discussion there anyway. So I will hand it off to Patrick now to get us started, as long as you're ready.
Okay. So recently I've been asked to work on changing up some of the Fedora Atomic host deliverables we have, because previously we were generating a tree every day, but previously we would also ship that tree out every day. And once every 2 weeks, we ship a new image, a new set of images for installing with the tree that has been tested and found good at that time. This disconnect was confusing people and not ideal, because that means that if you did a atomic host upgrade, you might get an untested tree. So as a consequence, what we now have done is, let me check screen sharing. Let's hope that this works.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So what we have now done is we are now actually moving the tree forward whenever we upgrade, whenever we promote a new set of images. So these are sets of images that we have promoted to be stable after having tested them. And so that part is also now those trees that you pull down might be slightly older, because they should be attached to these trees. So if you now do an atomic host update with the live rev, you should only get this tree and not any of the trees built since then. So let me log into a atomic host status. So this is one from January 30th, which you can see is the second to last. So not the last, but one before that. And if I now say upgrade, also we are now producing and shipping Delta files, which shortens the download time by quite a bit. So currently this is downloading the Delta files, which this is just 7 files instead of the couple of hundreds it would normally do for an update. So let's wait. Well, So now the atomic code status, it only has the tree from the 14th, which is the one that was promoted together with the latest image, and it doesn't have any of the intermediate trees as well. So that was part of the atomic host overhaul that we've been working on this last sprint. While I'm here, are there any questions about this? Let's see. I don't see anything, so bigger font. Let's see if that, I don't know if it can. Doesn't look like it. So while I'm there, or while I have the VM open, I can also show something else off that we've been working on recently. So as some of you might know, Docker we are shipping Docker images now via registry.forproject.org. However, because of various reasons, we're not using Docker's built-in image signing. So as a result of that, to work around that, we have been working with the Project Atomic folks on getting another signing tool working, which is part of the Atomic tool. So Atomic Trust Show, this now says like, I will trust any image downloaded from anywhere, but Atomic Trust will reject. Now it should reject full registry for project for 5. So it's now saying I don't have any way to validate this. When we say atomic just add registry for project for 6 for This is the key data shift with every Fedora system by default. We can now say a pool. And as part of this, you didn't see that, but just before this, it actually verified that our image is signed. And you didn't see that, but just before. Sorry, what? I think someone is trying to talk, but I can't hear them.
I just muted the line. Go ahead.
Okay. So as part of this pooling, it also verified the signature that we added with the primary Fedora 25 key. And now I can see Docker run IT registry for project Fedora and it's fully downloaded the container and after verifying the signature. So this is also that was another thing that we got working this sprint.
Okay. So I see a couple of comments that folks are having a hard time reading text. I know we got through Patrick's stuff okay, but for people who are presenting after, if you could try to bigify your screen or your font, that would be appreciated.
I can show, oh well. I think that's it, if anyone has questions.
Okay, so certainly feel free to continue adding questions in channel if you have them. We'll be here all week as it turns out, but I'll go ahead and hand off to Adam to demo the next portion.
Okay, first off, I'm going to actually play a video that was sent by Randy Barlow, who could not be with us today on the live call. But it's going to kind of show off some of the work that he's been doing around the registry and being able to scale it out and you know, participating cross team to get this stuff rolled out. So let me also, I don't know if the audio is going to work on this. So somebody let me know. If not, I will narrate it. Did anybody hear audio just now?
No, it would be a real shame to lose his audio. He's so adorable.
It would. I have no idea how to do that. Let me try something really quick.
Why don't we just narrate it if you don't mind, Adam?
Okay, that's not going to work. All right, well, I will narrate on his behalf. Let's get screen sharing going again. Oh, no, is that not going to work? Oh my gosh.
Now you're just perpetuating the stereotype of technical difficulties in demos. I blame you.
That's fine. Okay. So today we're going to talk about the new CDN-backed container registry that has been rolled out by Fedora. So first off, we're going to look at components of the REST API for the registry, so we can actually see what the layers are and what the different binary blobs will be that we can. What?
I cannot see the video.
Really?
Really?
I can.
Okay, maybe it's just me.
Okay, so here you can see registry contents for direct repositories, and then from there we'll actually look into specifically the cockpit repository and what tags are available. So in each repository in a registry there are different tags, and in this one we're going to kind of inspect the tag for version 130, the major revision 130. So we can actually see the checksums for the different binary blobs that go into it. And from here, we will be able to actually pull directly a layer so we can see where it's coming from. So we can see here that we're getting a 302 redirect, which is going to send us to a CDN destination. And that CDN is actually going to be scaled out and GeoIP aware and those kinds of things. So what we'll do next is we'll go and actually pull and show that, number one, this works with the 302 redirects to our CDN. And then just kind of number two, demonstrate that if you were to do this yourself, you can go ahead and pull individual blobs from these locations, and as well as just layered images in general. And that is live now. That is in production, and we have that available to users today. I'm sorry you did not get to enjoy Randy's much more elegantly articulated version of that. Okay, I think.
Is it worth Adam giving a quick just update on what our plans are going forward from here? Or is that not stable enough yet to share?
I mean, there are plans to kind of expand on this and also include the Fedora volunteer mirror network as a kind of a component in the load balanced backing for the binary blobs, much like we have the CDN. We'll have a similar solution to include our mirror network for the opt-in mirrors who want to join with that. So we are continually trying to find ways to make this even better than it is today. But I think in most recent tests we were looking at something in the ballpark of like an 80% speed increase, or at least 50 up to 80, depending on your geo and how close you are to a CDN endpoint. So, all right. The next thing I'm going to demo is actually kind of a component of both release engineering and the Fedora Atomic Working Group. And that is actually our review process for getting new content into the Fedora registry, how to build it. And I've in the past demoed the actual build environment. So this is going to be more about the process. And then I'll also kind of rounding back to the release engineering part. I'll show the building blocks that we're putting together to completely automate the release process of this. And we hope to have that rolled out before the next time we do a release, which is next Tuesday. So the review process is just going to be a standard process for a contributor who wants to maintain container layered images. And one thing to note is and this is something that comes up with volunteers who show up, you are going to see kind of an intermixing of the the term Docker and container, and the reason for that is originally when this was started, Docker was kind of the only act in town, and now that we have the Open Container Initiative, we are targeting OCI compliant container images. So for anybody who wants to actually pull content from our registry and run it with various OCI compliant runtimes, we are providing that, and that's kind of a goal long term, is to allow community members to choose whatever solution suits them best. So just note that we're still kind of cleaning up some of that process and some of the terminology, but it's just a matter of getting the documentation updated and all in stride. So. As a contributor, you can come in and you can provide your Docker file to build the container image. We actually have our own template now in Bugzilla. You follow your Bugzilla much in the same way that you have a template for filing a review request for RPM packages. You'll have a reviewer. You need to look at the container guidelines, which is what's on the screen now. And the container guidelines also, again, for anybody who's interested to kind of contribute and help us iterate on this. This is something else that the Fedora Atomic Working Group is continually updating to try and make this better and define newer recommendations for labels and those kinds of things to try and enable more orchestration layers. The Atomic application, Kubernetes, OpenShift, those kinds of things. But as it stands today, we have kind of a basic set of things that we request that all containers comply with. There's also a definition of how the Fedora base image interacts with all of this versus the layered images, what the FGC stands for is Fedora Generational Core, which you will see kind of in the our registry names. So that's going to be the repository namespace. And then going from there, we just kind of describe how different labels interact with our build environment, how they need to be set, how they're required. There's a quick example, and oh no, it's going to be back over here. Where is it? Syntax on it is wrong. So we'll run, to actually go ahead and execute this in our environment, to do the build, we'll do a fed package container build. And that will happen from sources that are imported into our source control management. And our source control management is managed by the Fedora package database. Fedora package database is namespaced out for RPMs and other various types of deliverables. One of those are the container images. So we have our various container images here that are imported into Dist-Git and that we can have builds done from. Now, once the builds go through, that's where the release engineering component is going to kind of round in. And that's where the Fedora release engineering automation effort is targeting, providing a fully automated pipeline to have these go out on a time-based release based on events. So the end goal will be that all of the container images that we ship will have automated tests. Once those tests pass, there's a message sent across what's called the Fed bus, Fed message bus. And those messages are stored in data grepper, so we can actually go back and look at them historically. And at the point in time, we do an atomic 2-week release. That 2-week release will complete. Then that will trigger the release of these artifacts. These artifacts will verify what the latest that has passed testing will go out, and then we'll be able to release them. So we will have AutoCloud providing information to FedMessage for the atomic release, short term, and Taskotron will provide that in the future, and then Taskotron is going to provide the testing for the layered images. Those will feed into FedMessage, and then we will have our workflow engine actually go ahead and run these different tasks. And the workflow engine is, I'm going to, hold on, let's switch. Here we go. The workflow engine is actually just Ansible. Like at the end of the day, it's basically an event listener that triggers Ansible tasks. And I have a little example here, a Fed container RC, and that identifies, so there's a custom Ansible module that identifies Fedora container release candidates, and it'll return a list, and then we can actually do we can perform tasks with that list, and those tasks will effectively be to run. Oh, I meant to show one more thing really quick. So FLR is Fedora lib releng, and it is aimed to be a small set of reusable library functions that can be wrapped by small command line utilities. And one of those command line utilities is FLR Docker. And this actually has a command in here to do remote copy, which will copy images between 2 remote registries. One of them is going to be our candidate registry, the other being our production registry. So we'll do the remote copy, and then we'll also have another, so that will be executed by one of our tasks in our Ansible playbook, and then we will also have another task to perform the image signing, which is what Patrick demoed earlier. So all of these things will be tied together by Ansible playbooks, and all of it will be kicked off by the automation that is triggered by Fed messages. So I've already done a run of this little demo, and what it does is it gives us a list and identifies the release candidate list of all of the images that we can release. And for those who saw the release announcement recently, this list should look very familiar, plus or minus a couple of new things that contributors have gotten to build since then. And that's about it. Are there any questions about all of this? I went over a bit. No? Okay, cool.
Okay. Then I think that Kushal has a couple of things to run through as well. So Kushal, we'll let you get started.
Yes, so I should do the screen share first. Application window. So screen. Is it okay? Can you see this?
Yep.
Okay. So one of the major change thing we are working on for Fedora 96 is actually doing the exact same test for AWS images. Right now, we do test the AWS images before publishing, but that's a very small test. Instead of that, what we want to do in future is run all the same tests which we are currently running for the OpenStack, the QCount image basically, and the Vagrant images. And we are going to do that with the help of a small command line based tool, which is basically Golang version of Tunir or GoTool for short form. And I'm not going to demo it from my terminal, but instead I'm going to demo how, because it's a command line tool, how we can use it from any other script, or in this case from a Jenkins instance. If you want to just play with this, you can just set up Golang in your computer and just run one single command as given here. This should get you the GoTool binary built for in your system. So there are a few major things in this Golang version. The most important part for our work is it can do both OpenStack and AWS test runs. That means the tool actually will fire up an instance either on OpenStack or on AWS, or it can actually handle any other remote systems using IP and then work on those systems. I'm actually first a demo. So I did a small setup of Jenkins using a container for the demo purpose actually, nothing else. If I just click on the build now, and we'll look at the output and then see what exactly we are doing. So the one change from here is we actually now taking in a YAML format, the configuration, but the job and everything is exactly the same, like what we used to have. So in this case, this particular test, we are firing up the job on our Fedora infrastructure cloud instead of running anything in locally. So it is going to fire up this server instance, and as you can see, it's trying to assign a floating. I'm not floating point. I'm floating point IP. I think we should update the text. Oops. So, and we also added a feature for polling the instances because we need to keep polling it to see if the reboot the VM is back up or not. And particularly for OpenStack, we also have a special directive to rebuild all the servers. So like in this example, you can see that we are creating a file, and then in between we have a command to just destroy the old instances and rebuild all of them. So I mean, you can do something destructive to your VM also while doing any testing. And the documentation has the output for example purpose. So here we can see it's still trying to poll for a successful SSH connection. Just have to wait and see if it works. If I go back and just look the last run which I did few minutes back, you will notice that it is running the exact same test. For this example, we are running the actual test cases which we use for Fedora Atomic image. And it executes the test in the same way. I'm just going to pass through this, and I'm going to paste this URL in our IRC room. So AutoCloud is going to use this particular tool to fire up test cases for AWS. And if only all the test was in one particular region, then only we're going to push the image to all the other regions. So that is the part of this new change we're going to work on. There is a review request right now up in the Bugzilla for the tool, which should be finished hopefully this week, by this weekend. After that, we should anyone should be able to DNF install the tool on Fedora system. And here is one more example where we are actually running the upstream atomic host test cases. If we see, we have a very simple shell script where we had to do this basically for this one line, where we want to make sure that it is our tool is, or in this case Ansible is not testing the host key, because if we test under any OpenStack instance, we'll get a different host key for the same IP. If you see the console output, and in this particular example, we are actually firing up two different VMs for the same job, and then running the whole Ansible test shoot from upstream atomic, project atomic. I have a few more blog posts on the same thing in my blog, shundas.in. So if anyone wants to see what else we can do about this tool, you can just go and read my blog. And this is, I'm pasting the URL for the documentation. Okay, so I can see Dusty asked, like, why do we rewrite Tunir in Golang? So the major reason was to have, we were using AWS. For AWS, in Tunir can fire up a new job, but it is using, I guess, libcloud, the Apache libcloud module. And having the Python dependencies were kind of causing me some trouble, because I was looking for some particular feature which was there in one version but not in the other one, I mean the older ones. And also when we tried to add the OpenStack, what do you call it, the dependency on OpenStack, so that we make sure that we can upload images to OpenStack if we require, that was not possible. If I remember correctly, that was not possible from the libcloud at that moment. And we could use the official OpenStack dependencies, but Python modules, but that would bring in a lot of more dependencies. But the new code base in the Golang is actually much smaller compared to the Python one, and it does only the remote cloud things using the OpenStack. Actually, that's from Rackspace. It's called Gopher Cloud, the library, and AWS is the official Golang SDK from Amazon. So those are the two dependencies for GoTo. And I think there was another question.
So really quick, if I can comment, I don't know if this is an original design goal of rewriting it in Go, but one thing I see as a big positive for testing containers is that we can effectively mount a volume into a container that contains this executable and run tests without having to modify the image itself to run tests on the image. So I thought that was really cool.
I guess we can do that. So, I mean, yeah, because it's just a single binary tool now, like we can do anything like as we want to for this particular thing. And as usual, it's we can use this from any other actual CI system, let it be Tasktron or Jenkins or something else. So this should work as simple like how it is working on Jenkins. We just provide the authentication information over environment variables. And for the provisioning, that's we use the official AWS SDK. That's the answer to Dusty.
Is the official AWS SDK open source? Because I know like
Yes, it's in Fedora.
all the Python libraries and stuff were not, and all the original binaries were not open source.
Yeah, but the AWS SDK is already in Fedora. So both the dependencies are already in Fedora. Because I think Docker's lib machine already uses it, if I'm not wrong. And the tool also had a few new things which I'm not talking about in details here. One of the major thing was like running Ansible on the host as a part of the test. So now we are in now we can actually use any tool like Ansible based test cases, or let's say even if it is a different shell script which we need to run from a host, we can actually create and execute those tests from the host. So it really doesn't matter how the test cases are written. This tool should be able to execute in your tests written in any language or any framework. And that was a positive thing from our side, because we'll just reuse any upstream test cases if you want to. And already in the current Fedora atomic test cases, we are testing the containers which are pushed into the Docker registry. So if required, we can just pull in the containers from our own registry now and add more test cases as usual. Is there any other question?
Yeah, let's continue, just since we're going back and forth between IRC and the recording here, let's continue the conversation in channel if there's more on this topic. And I think we can go ahead and wrap up today unless I missed any demos from anyone, or if anyone has a question about anything else that they'd like to get onto the recording. All right, well, thank you for everybody who joined to watch the demos live. Thanks for everybody who watches them after the fact in our recordings. We'll be scheduling another one of these as soon as we have another batch of changes to show you guys, so expect more invites coming forth. Thanks to all of the presenters as well. We'll talk to you guys in channel.